So I've titled it Through the Compensation Looking Glass, because that's really what SB 1162 is. And it is only in California. So if you have, states, people in other states, this does not apply, as I'm sure you already know. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to go slide by slide. Maybe, Dave? All right. Maybe it's not doing that. All right. Oh, I'll just click maybe. Oh, okay, that'll work too. All right. So pay transparency. So why did it happen was the first thing, right? Why did they do that? I know when I heard about it, I was thinking, why are they making it more difficult for us to do our jobs, right? Because if you put a salary range or a very high range on salaries, and then you have someone who's not skilled for that particular job, they're going to want whatever you tell them the highest pay is on the salary. I know I'm speaking your language to everybody that's on this call, because when you're dealing with candidates that you're onboarding and or just interviewing, that one of the very crucial conversations is about the pay and how do you handle that with this new law is what we're going to be discussing. So, but we did that because we want transparency for all workers. We wanted to eliminate the people above us, wanted to eliminate any gender and racial pay disparities. So are there those disparities? Do they really exist in corporate America today? If you could speak right now, I know you'd be saying, heck yeah, they do, because they do, unfortunately. I spoke with a publicly traded company yesterday, and they have 3 people in the same job. 2 are women, 1 is a man, and that man is making double what those women are making. And they're trying to make that right now. So it was really timely that I was able to help with that particular situation. The next reason is because we want people not to be discriminated, right, or retaliated against in harassment. So if there is a problem where you're getting paid less and you bring it up to your employer, we want to make sure that those people that are handling that request are handling it in the right way, because we don't want the employees or future employees to feel like they're being discriminated against, or if they're current employees retaliated or harassed, right? So those are the things that we really want to make sure that we're doing this for, and that we really carry that out. Again, when I first heard about this rule, I was like, oh my gosh, not another problem, for me to have to manage through. And it's running as an agency, which is what I do. It's very interesting because, we have people tell us all kinds of things that aren't true as far as candidates as well. So anyway, here we go. So who's affected? All of us that have employers with 15 plus employees in Southern California or California overall, and they have to be based in California. And this started the beginning of the year. So you're probably already on top of that. So when does it apply? When an employer reaches 15 employees at any point in any pay period. So if you're at 14 and you go to 15 halfway through, guess what? You have to start reporting for that halfway through part as well. And then the second is any employees located in California. So if you have someone outside of California, it's really not applicable to them, but only those that are in California. So I think that's super helpful too, because, you got to know who you got to do it with, right? So what are the requirements? Well, you heard about the fact that you have to post jobs and you have to post a salary range, right? A pay range. And if you don't do that, you could be subject to being fined. I will say though, I do look at the ads quite often, as you can imagine, and I don't see a lot of companies doing this yet. So I'm wondering when the auditing of those job postings is going to happen and when they're going to be getting actually fines. Because as I see them, they will either not mention salary, or they'll mention they'll not mention salary, or they'll mention one side only, not a range. And I think that's incorrect. So anyway, so we have to make sure we're including that. And again, 15 employees or more is what the criteria is in California. So the salary and hourly wage range that the employer is reasonably expects to pay for the position. So some of our clients that are like in New York City, they had tried to say, okay, this is a branch manager role. So the branch manager can be brought in here at 60,000 or 120,000. So we're just going to put that range in the advertisement. And that actually was not well received, obviously, because it doesn't show what you would really pay. So the HR directors and VPs that I work with have done a real good job of making sure that if the range is 60 to 120, let's say, that you make the range in the midpoint, because you're not going to pay someone 60 usually, because they're going to have some experience before you hire them. And then you're not going to pay the top of the range because they have no place to go. And we want to give them some promotability and all that. So we want to make sure that, you know, you're using that thought logic, because if not, you could also be audited and not necessarily fined, but warned. And then if you're using a third party, such as my kind of company, you want to make sure that you provide the pay scale to me so that I can put that in the advertisement if I run an ad for you. So just communicating it to the third party is totally fine, as long as you have documentation of that. If they don't do their part, then, you know, it's on them. It's not on you. So that's the good news there. But you do want to make sure your partners are really your partners and they're doing what you want them to do. So current employees are the requirement. So you're looking at them and their pay scale. And then you want to make sure that if anybody does ask about their pay range or their pay, that's on another slide coming up, but you'll answer that question as well. So these are the requirements, and this is what you need to do for that. And so the data reporting part. So this is the part that, again, you guys are probably already doing because, you know, this is what you've been doing for larger companies anyway. So, but with this, for the pay scale, they really want to make sure that if you have 100 employees or more, that you are really maintaining a real good job sort of record, if you will, meaning about all of the descriptions, the wage histories, and their duration for employment, and then 3 years past that. So if you have somebody working for you for 5 years, during that whole time you're doing that normal maintenance, I think it's May, or here it is, Wednesday. The second Wednesday of May is when it's due. You guys probably already know that as well. And so you're going to make sure that continues on, and you got to keep those records for 3 years, and that's it. So 100 plus employees is where you're going to actually start the data reporting. And then you're going to make sure that you have those records and that you're submitting them to that third bullet there, which is the California Civil Rights Department. And again, you guys probably already know that because you're doing that now. So that's important, that number, right? The 100. So what do we look for the data reporting? So the main thing on the data reporting, and again, you guys probably know this, is the number of employees that we have that are by race, ethnicity, and by sex, because we need to manage to see that we have that ability to keep things, you know, at a sort of a neutral state where we have lots of different diversity in our employees. So what you would do is you would, of course, look at who they are, and then you'd look at what they are and what they're being paid in the salary bands. So on the second bullet there, it says the number of employees by race, ethnicity, and sex whose annual earnings fall within each pay band that is used in the United States Bureau of Labor Statistics, which of course is who does all of that. And so you want to keep those bands. So let's say you have 20 people in that salary band, and you'll want to determine 15 are male and 5 are female, and what is their average hourly rate? And are those people, you know, in similar ranges and reasonable ranges based on their experience? The answer is no, and there's something that it needs to be changed. Then, you know, we used to call it in the old days, making them whole with the other people in the department, making their salaries whole, because when they get hired in or when they get transferred around, there is a disparity sometimes that has to be rectified by the HR department. So what is the median and mean hourly rate for each job category? I mean, that's the other thing. You know, what am I paying? Let's say, just say receptionist. You have receptionists in 5 branches in California. Are they all making the same money? And if they're not, why not? And what is their ethnicity? And is there a definite correlation between some of them being paid less or more based on that? You know, the other news, it could be good news, they're making too much too, right? Or too little, but usually we see it as too little, but there are some that make too much. So very rarely, but there are. And then total number of hours worked for each employee, and, you know, in that pay band. So maybe some of those receptionists are part-time, maybe they're 3/4 of the time, or maybe they split their jobs, you know, as receptionists and then maybe accounting. And so how do you solve for that? Accounting gets paid a different number, receptionist gets paid a different number. How do you solve for that is really the question in their mind. So we want to make sure that you're accounting for that. And then the Employers North American Industry System, which is the NAICS code, you know, is how you're going to report that in, which you guys have already done, I'm sure. So next is really, what are the remedies? And what that really means is, you know, what are you going to have to pay if you don't, you know, do this the right way? And you can see it's not cheap. It can be $100 to $10,000 per violation. So, and usually it's sparked by a complaint by the Department of Labor. and they hear from a scorned employee, well, I wasn't paid what I deserved, or someone came in after me making double what I made, or I asked about my salary and nobody would tell me, or some of those sorts of comments. And then what happens is they'll then start an investigation. They'll reach out to you. You'll have to provide them with documents that will show that you have done or have not done what I'm saying. And then could be a lawsuit, coming your way, which is never fun. So having it documented and having this particular process handled is really important for you. It's not just the money, it's about the reputation, that you have with your employees and with the hiring people out in the vendor space. You want your company to always look the best, and you want to really wrap your arms around your employees and make sure that they know that you care about them, as well as the production that they provide your company to be successful in their field. So I really enjoyed that part of it too, making sure they get where we're coming from and why this is important. So just one more slide actually before we get into some questions here, because I know there's lots of questions. And so I'm going to just go to that next slide. And so here is the additional compensation legislation that's out. So obviously there's two new pieces, and the first part is the Labor Code section 432.3, and that says, and this again started I think even last year, you couldn't ask candidates their previous salary history, and you can't use their pay to determine their current pay, to their new job. And so the question I get quite a bit is, well, what can we ask, right? How can we stay compliant and make sure we're doing the right thing? Well, you just can't ask about previous salary. So what I advise is that you can say, what salary are you looking for? Or I usually say, because I'm with an agency, what salary range are you looking for? Because then that way I can consider them for a variety of jobs, not just the salary that they're saying. So if they are looking for a HR manager role, we'll say, so they're looking for that role and they're trying to figure out, is it going to be better or worse than where I'm at right now? And so I would say that you would say what that range is, not just what the high end was. So if someone says I need 90,000, then you're kind of stuck with 90. But if they say I'll work for, 85 to 100,000, I just want the best job that, meets my skills and that I can be happy at and have autonomy and have a seat at the table. I hear a lot with HR people. So that's how I would ask it. I'm sure others maybe have ideas on that are on the call, and we're happy to hear what those would be. But that's what I always say, is I really just look at that. And then the other thing is, as far as they can't use your last pay to determine your current pay. So the old school way was, okay, they're making X amount of dollars at their current company. We're going to have them at this role next, and that's going to be a jump in pay because it's a jump in responsibility. And so when we do that, then it makes sense that they would get more money, but how much? And so we would say, okay, if they're making 90 at their last job, we'll pay them 95. So we did probably 80% of the time use that as a criteria for making offers, in my experience. So I can see why stopping that is going to help, because they're going to say this job pays, like I said, 60 to 120 earlier. So, and this person's in that range. When we decide this is the right person for our company in that role, then we'll make them an offer that is something they're going to be interested in. So we won't, I always say, don't make an offer that's insulting, or you won't get an acceptance for sure. So it's sort of I call it a soft boarding the offer to see, okay, so if you're going to get an offer for this role at this salary range, you would consider it. Is that correct? And they usually will say, yes, I will consider it. And I will be very excited to accept it at this number, is what they tend to say, So anyway, you're just having an honest, open dialogue about the salary. You're not saying whether they're going to get it or not get it. You're just wanting to know what they need to make a change for this role. So advice I give to candidates from time to time is, if you're looking at a position and they don't advertise the salary like they're supposed to, that you should just ask about it. And of course, if it's an HR person that's interviewing, they know the laws typically, and 99% of the time they do. So I would then ask them about it as well, because you need to sort of know, is this company you're applying for going to be legally compliant? Or if I'm in HR and I'm going to go to work there, am I going to have to reinvent the wheel every time there's a new law? And sometimes that's a red flag, right, for companies when they're interviewing, meaning that when you're interviewing as a candidate to that company, you want to make sure that they're compliant, doing everything right, especially in HR, legal, or in operations, because sometimes you're held liable for the things that aren't being done right in your company. So the next one is the California Equal Pay Act, which is very important as well. And so we cannot limit an employee's right to discuss the pay in the workplace. So what does that really mean? What that means is that in the past, going back, right, because I've got 40 years in October that I've been doing my job in search and staffing. So I've seen a lot of different things. But in the old days, we used to be able to tell clients would tell their employees, you're not allowed to discuss your salary or anything that's your own personal HR information with any employee. As a matter of fact, we had it, I think, in contracts even in the old day. If you discuss salary with any employee, I forget how the wording was exactly, you will be, it's cause for termination. So this is a day and night difference, right, of that. So this goes back maybe 20 years when we used to do that, maybe 25 years now. And now it's like, if you tell an employee they can't discuss salary, then you're really not being a good leader, right, based on this new law. So they're allowed to discuss it, and they're also allowed to ask you what their pay range is for their job. So all this has changed, right? So we didn't do this in the beginning. So now they may be reading HR things or just reading the newspaper and finding out, gosh, the law says I should be able to find out my salary range for my job. Now, some companies publicized that in the past and some did not. So, and then us, meaning the employer, have to say, okay, this job pays. The range we have for it is 90 to 120 or whatever it might be. And our medium is this, this range. And then that particular employee can then say, oh my gosh, that's great. Thank you so much for giving me that information. And then maybe they're going to decide, well, I don't want to be in accounting anymore. I'd like to be in customer service, or I'd like to be in HR or operations. And then they'll come to you again and say, well, I'm really thinking about a change in my career, but I want to stay at the company. Can you please tell me what the salary range is for the customer service manager or the accounting, operations role, whatever that title is they are thinking might be of interest to them, because they can pull the job descriptions off of your site typically, or have access to it internally. So what they need from you to know if it's the right move for them is it going to pay me less or more than what my current career would pay me? So, and then we have to tell them that too. So they have to be able to get access to their current job salary range, and also the prospective new job that they want to apply for at your company salary range as well. So it does help with keeping everything out in the open. In the old days, I'm thinking the old crusty, dark wood, no lights in the office, smoking, going on. I'm thinking of Don Draper and that team, right? When you think about that, you think about, oh my gosh, all the bad things that went on in that environment. And you think about today and why we're better today than we were then. And it really is about making sure we're more fair and we're more equitable with not just the pay, but the jobs that people get to do. And then the type of people that we hire, right? So I always find that diversity is a challenge for us because we try to lead with that, and we try to hire, and we, in some cases, my clients overcompensate, trying to make sure that their ethnicities, or there's a variety of them in their work culture. Most employers feel like the work culture with a lot of diversification adds more value to their clients. And most find that the people, when they bring them together, having different mindsets about things brings in a more diverse way of thinking of things. And it helps the companies that hire those people and get them into those teams do better, faster, quicker, and they're happier employees, so they stay longer. So your time to fill your job openings, your stability of each job with each employee, it is increasing from our stats that we're getting. And then also job satisfaction overall, because they feel safe, they feel whole, and they feel like, they're being heard for some of the times when they haven't felt heard. So anyway, that's really important. And this is the last bullet here: requires equal pay across all genders and races for similar work. So if a person feels like they're being shorted, or not being considered seriously for a particular role, and certainly not given the right to either interview or hear the salary information, they're going to go to the Department of Labor probably, and they're going to say, my employer is not cooperating with me and I have a problem. And again, that's going to open up a case, and then you're going to have to hire counsel. And, we all know where that goes. It's more money, more time, out of our days that we need to spend on helping the companies grow that we work with. So that's it in a nutshell, really, about the two pieces of legislation, how to handle it, how my clients are handling it. And it's a very, very long road we have. As I mentioned, that publicly traded company that I work with, they have that problem, and they know they do. And so they have to address it in such a way that isn't going to take their company and spiral it out so that there's not enough revenue to run the company, right? So you can't make everybody come up. You have to really look at it as a whole, and you have to go in and you have to do it almost in stages and phases along the way if you see that that's a challenge. I do have consultants like Cal Work Safety. They do great work in this area. Oh my gosh, they're just the best at all this sort of thing. So I recommend you reach out to them. They'll come in, they'll do an assessment and help you and direct you. And so I think that's the beauty here, is you have lots of people that are in your same position that are trying to do the right thing also, and also trying to educate the people above you, right? The owners, the board members, the equity partners, the people that are still kind of stuck in the old way, and they sometimes don't understand that. I liken it to the remote hybrid process we're going through right now with most of our workers in America. They're really enjoying the hybrid remote area, but they do want to go into an office from time to time. And so what we're finding with our candidates is that, they're saying, if I can't have a hybrid, if I can't have a work-home life balance, then I'm just not going to work at that company anymore. I'm going to find another job. So again, we as employers can wrap our arms around that process, hit it up front, make sure that they know what they're supposed to be doing and when they're supposed to be doing in that regard. And the executives of the companies that we support need to hear real-time information of what's happening so that you can support that workforce that you really want. Whether it's in, out, if it's hybrid, if it's totally remote, it doesn't matter to me, of course. It matters more to the company and what they need. And even customer service, we've been placing people in remote customer service positions where they work out of their home on a laptop from the company, and it's working beautifully. So I'm surprised at some of the positions. The receptionist you think wouldn't be good for remote, but we have a receptionist that works remote, and they just don't have an office, and they close their offices. So very interesting way of working these days. And these new laws, right? The California SB 1162 really threw me on my heels, I have to say, because I'm thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to make this work for us? Because I got to know about these things, in order to be able to make a solid placement for my clients. So like I said, that's pretty much it. It's 10:30, and we are able to take questions right now. So did you want me to look at the chat, Jake, and then answer them myself? Is that
I
what
can go ahead and read
okay?
those to you.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. First question, does the ADP reporting suffice for the 3-year requirement?
That I'm not an expert on ADP reporting, but the answer that I think is right is yes. So if somebody else on this call works with ADP and knows that 100%, please let Diana know. And if not, Diana, what you can do, my contact information is at the back. I should probably just click that one more time. And then actually, yeah, there, you can send me a quick email and then I'll do some research and let you know either way, because I just don't know for sure. But my answer would be yes, without doing the research, because that's what ADP is supposed to be doing. It's supposed to be documenting all of your information for your payroll. It's supposed to have all of those, all that information, and they're supposed to be able to give it to you to support you and send it to the departments that it needs. So that's I think a yes, but again, it's about a 70% yes. Okay.
Daniel says, I find it ironic that they don't want us putting a large range for salaries, but the fine has a huge range.
Oh, exactly. Very good, Danielle. It is ironic. A lot of this stuff is ironic. That's a great word. I love it. And it is interesting because when they said to put the salary ranges, they want us to make it small. It doesn't make any sense. But hey, this is government laws, right? What do we expect?
We have some positions that we always bring in employees at the minimum. This allows equity for all new employees in this position. Do I still need to post a range?
I would say yes, only because I think that's just what the way it's going. So why not? And I would do the range only because maybe there's going to be somebody that you interview that isn't as good as the other people, or is maybe just a tad better, just a little bit out of that sort of window that you typically hire for. And that person who's better probably wouldn't take the job, right? So you'd lose that person. And the one who's trying to be as good, probably you wouldn't offer the job to. But if you had a little window and it didn't cost you as much money for the less skilled person, or if you had a little bit more budget for that really, really good person, maybe that person could become a lead in that department. Ultimately, you can see the vision there. So I like the range for that reason. But if there's no way in heck that your employer is going to let you pay a little more or a little less, then yeah, you can post what it is. And I guess the question would be, are you under 15 employees? Because that's the other thing, right? Over 15, the range is what you're supposed to post. So I guess I would post it just because it would help me, with my own hiring. And then I would think that it would be right to do based on this law. Jake, are you there?
Oh, sorry, I was muted. Can we still say that pay is commensurate with experience?
You can say that, but you have to follow it up with the pay range is commensurate with your experience or with experience. Because again, they really want that range, is the sense I'm getting. And so I put range in everywhere I could, honestly, just to help you with that. And it is, I believe it is as well, Jenny, that it is based on your experience, because we have an HR director role we're placing right now, and the range is, the high range is a difference of 80,000. And so I'm like, well, that's a big range. Where do you really want us to be? And they're seriously wanting to leave it that way, because if they find an up and comer who can take on the responsibility, who's worked for that kind of company before, they will. So I kind of like the idea of having the range for that reason. And I think that I'm certainly not going to pay someone 200,000 versus someone 100,000 unless they have the experience. So Jenny's comment is well received and understood by us all, I'm sure, right?
Perfect. See. If I let's see, am I muted? No.
Now it says,
If I
it's Danielle, do they take into
yes.
account quality of work? Meaning, if there's pay disparity between higher and lower performers, is there a safe harbor? Gosh, that's a really good question. The answer is no. Unfortunately, the answer is no. But I mean, if it goes to court and it's tested, maybe yes, right? Would be the answer. But they don't really take into account about the work at all. They just take into account what you've done in the past, or not what you've done in the past, your experience in the past, and then they look at the job salary range, and you're either in that range or you're not. That's the way though it's written. So unfortunately, no. But I do believe that they should. If you ask me, I would be with Danielle on this one, meaning that I feel like, performance makes a difference. At 23, I was the vice president of a small staffing firm, and I had and ultimately 5 branches within 2 years. So I was an overachiever for sure, but I was paid more because I made more for the company. So it was a matter of me being able to accomplish more. But that isn't always the case, right? So when you have disparity between higher and lower performers, I think you just don't give them increases anymore until they do what you want them to do. And ultimately, they either self-select or deselect and leave and move on, or they'll rise up to the occasion. And I usually try to get people that are underperformers, because I'm looking at the lower performer end of things, I usually try to give them a coach to help them that's not in the company, like an outside coach, because that person can tell them as a whole what they're doing and how to unblock whatever it is that's being a problem with them. And it's usually personal and it's none of my business. And so I really don't want to deal with it other than, can you come in and do a great job? That's really what I want.
And Jenny says, we only have to post pay range when we post a job opportunity. Please confirm.
That's correct. That is correct. You have to post the pay range. But remember, Jenny, I did say that I haven't seen it as widely spread as I thought I would. So that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, but I think they're allowing us some grace here, because it's been this is the third month now. We're not able to, it's just halfway through the third month. And so, they're kind of helping us with that. But I do anticipate in the next couple of months, they'll start auditing that and they'll start, gentle reminders or maybe fines. I don't know. So yes, pay range for sure.
Right, great. Do we have any more questions? This is an important topic. Remember, if we did not address your questions today, go ahead and reach out to us at info@calworksafetyhr.com. Do you have anything else to say, Kathy?
No, I'm just happy to be here. Thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate your time. And I'm excited to kind of navigate through this craziness with you and figure out, how we can make sure that, our companies are protected, right?
Yeah, great. Perfect. Again, be on the lookout for our future topics on our website at calworksafety.com. Thank you for joining us today. Have a wonderful rest of your day.